Hello students, welcome to the third lecture of the chapter number 7 engine performance. In the second lecture we have discussed about few performance parameters. That is, first we have discussed about the efficiency, different types of the efficiency which are going to be used in the engine, internal combustion engine. Then after we have discussed about the next performance parameter, that is specific fuel consumption, and lastly we have discussed about the last performance parameter, that is specific weight. Then after we have also discussed the importance of measurement of brake power, and we have seen that dynamometer is going to be used to measure the torque, and indirectly it is going to measure the brake power. And then after we have discussed about the two main types of the dynamometer, those are absorption type and transmission type dynamometer. Also we have seen the sub classification of the absorption type dynamometer and transmission type dynamometer. Then after we have discussed about the difference between the absorption type dynamometer and transmission type dynamometer. Then we have started with first absorption type dynamometer, that is Prony brake dynamometer. In this Prony brake dynamometer we have seen that how the absorption of the energy is going to be done and how brake power is going to be measured. These brake shoes will apply the amount of force or pressure on the flywheel so that output shaft will stop at one point, and at that point whatever the balancing weight is there, we are going to measure that weight, and by using that weight and length of the distance from the shaft to the hanger, that is going to be measured, that is length, and by using that we are going to find out the torque by using the formula W into L, and by using that final formula we are able to find out that brake power 2 pi nt divided by 60,000. Here we have seen by absorption between the friction between the brake shoes and flywheel, that energy we have measured, that nothing but the brake power. Now we have to discuss about the second type of dynamometer, that is rope brake dynamometer. Similar to the Prony brake dynamometer, here also friction is going to be takes place, but that friction is going to be takes place between the rope and flywheel, or on the flywheel one drum is going to be used and friction is going to be takes place between the rope and that drum, and that friction is going to be absorbed. So we'll see how it works. That rope which is wound around the brake drum, one of its end is connected to the spring balance, in which we will get the spring balance reading which is hanged at one position, and another end of the rope is going to be connected to the balancing weight, or we can call this as a known weight. Here this is the rope, this is your brake drum around which this rope is going to be attached. One end is connected to the spring balance by using this hook, and another end is connected to this balancing weight. Now we are going to apply the amount of weight continuously increasing manner in this balancing weight. At one point it will happen that once the weight is going to be used, once this weight is going to be increased, because of that this rope will apply more amount of pressure on the brake drum, so that the speed of that brake drum will decrease, as well as engine shaft, it will, we can say that, rotating at lower speed. As we increase the weight, the speed is going to be decreased. At one point it will happen that the amount of weight which we have applied, at that weight this engine shaft will completely stop rotating, and that weight we have to consider. And by using that weight W and whatever the spring balance reading is there, by considering those two readings we are able to find out the brake power by using this formula. Brake power is equals to pi dn into bracket W minus S. So this W is nothing but the weight which we have applied on the spring balance, that is in terms of Newton, as well as S is nothing but the spring scale reading which we are going to see at this point, and D is nothing but the brake drum diameter. So by using this way we are able to find out the brake power of the shaft or brake power of the engine by using this rope brake dynamometer. Now we'll discuss third type of dynamometer, that is hydraulic dynamometer. In the last two types of the dynamometer we are using the friction between the first in the Prony brake dynamometer, friction between brake and flywheel. In this rope brake dynamometer, friction between rope and brake drum is going to be happen, and that is dry friction. In this hydraulic dynamometer, friction is going to be happen, but that friction is between the rotating shaft or one rotating material and the liquid. That liquid is mainly the water. So that's why it is called as a hydraulic dynamometer. Now we'll see the construction. In this hydraulic dynamometer, main shaft is there. On this main shaft, one rotor is going to be applied. This is the internal rotor. That means if the main shaft is going to be rotate, this rotor is also going to rotate. And then after, one stator is placed around this rotor by having some amount of distance between the rotor and stator. That means rotor and stator are not in directly contact with each other. They have some space between them. And that stator is going to be connected by using this trunnion bearings and shaft bearing. It is completely stationary by using these pedestals, so that we can say that stator is continuously steady. It is not going to rotate with the shaft, but rotor is going to rotate with the shaft. Now if the engine shaft is going to be rotate, that main shaft is going to be rotate. Along with this main shaft, rotor is going to be rotate. If the liquid is not between the stator and rotor, that rotor is continuously rotating and no any friction is going to be takes place. No any resistance will be applied to the rotor and no any resistance to this main shaft. But we have to measure the amount of brake power. That means amount of brake power which is available in the main shaft. So whatever this gap width which is available, at this point we are going to insert the amount of liquid between the stator and rotor, and we are going to increase the pressure of the liquid which is available between the stator and rotor here. So what will happen now? If the main shaft rotate, rotor will rotate, but that rotor has to pass to the liquid which is available surrounding to this rotor, so that liquid will offer some amount of resistance to this rotor and the speed of the rotor is going to be decreased. At one point it will happen that this rotor is going to be completely stopped if we increase the amount of pressure of the liquid. So that amount of pressure which is going to be applied, that we are able to measure, and by using that we are able to find out the amount of power which is applied to stop the rotor, and that power we can call as a brake power. So in this way here also we are going to stop the main shaft, but here we are using the hydraulic energy of the liquid. That's why these types of dynamometer are called as hydraulic dynamometers. So next type of dynamometer, that is nothing but the eddy current dynamometer. In this eddy current dynamometer, we are going to use the electric energy which is available for stopping the whatever the shaft which is going to be rotate. Now we'll see the diagram. Here the main shaft is available. On this main shaft, similar to the hydraulic dynamometer, one rotor is available. This is the rotor which is going to be rotate with this shaft. Along with this, stator is available which is surrounding to this rotor, but stator is again not in directly contact with the rotor. Now but along with this, one magnet is available which is placed in the stator. That means the gap between the rotor and stator, this magnet is available, that magnet is placed. Now if the rotor will rotate, we can say that rotations will be applied, and because of the rotations of that shaft, because of rotations of that rotor, eddy currents are going to be produced inside this, we can say that inside this magnet, and because of that one resistance is going to be applied, and because of that resistance your rotor is going to be stopped, and as well as this we can say that shaft is going to be stopped. So these eddy currents are dissipated in producing the heat, so that this type of dynamometers also requires some amount of cooling. So in this way also we are able to measure the amount of brake power by using the measuring the eddy currents which are going to be produced inside this magnet. So in this way we are able to measure the brake power. Now next we'll discuss, that is measurement of friction power. In the last we have discussed about measurement of brake power, because measurement of brake power is one of the important tasks, because brake power is nothing but our final output power. But along with that, we should know about the amount of loss which is going to be takes place. That is nothing but the friction power. We know that friction power is nothing but the amount of power which is going to be wasted because of the friction. So if we have to measure the amount of indicated power, how we can measure? We can measure the brake power by using the dynamometer. But how we can measure the indicated power? So for measuring the indicated power, we have to measure the friction power, and we'll see how this friction power is going to be measured. For measuring this friction power, three types of methods are going to be used. First one, Williams line method, second one, motoring test, and third one, Morse test. So we'll start with first method, which is going to be used for measuring the friction power. So first method for measuring the friction power is nothing but the Williams line test. So what will happen in this Williams line test, that we'll see. So first we'll see this diagram in this Williams line test. So this Williams line test is going to be used the graphical method for measurement of friction power. First, one graph is going to be plot. We can say that on the y-axis fuel consumption is going to be shown, that is gram per second, as well as on the x-axis brake power is going to be shown. That means first we'll just consider this y-axis and x-axis only. This friction power graph doesn't see. So first this graph is going to be plotted by using the whatever the, we can say that we are going to take the actual readings on the engine. One engine is going to be run, and by using that whatever the amount of observations, we are going to measure the fuel consumption which is going to be required for the producing the amount of brake power. Now we have seen that how to measure the brake power. By using the dynamometer, we can measure the brake power. So whatever this brake power which is going to be produced, this is going to be plotted on this x-axis, as well as at the same time how much amount of fuel is going to be used for producing that brake power, it is shown on this y-axis. And one graph is going to be plotted by taking number of readings in this way. And in this Williams line test, what we are doing, whatever this graph will get, that we are going to extend in the negative axis, in this negative axis, so that what will happen, we can say that whatever this amount of power which is going to be shown here, it will be nothing but the friction power. Why? Because if this brake power is 0, can we say that engine is not running? Because brake power is nothing but a total amount of useful power available at the shaft. That means we can say that first initial power which is going to be produced, it is completely going to be wasted for overcoming the amount of friction which is going to be takes place inside the engine. So that power which is going to be wasted is nothing but the friction power, and the point at which we will get the first brake power, before that energy is going to be wasted in the friction power. That means we can say that at this point, though the brake power is 0, this doesn't mean that no amount of fuel is going to be consumed. Here we will see some amount of fuel is going to be consumed. This fuel consumption is not 0 at the brake power is 0. So at brake power is 0, some amount of fuel consumption is there. Means what? Power is going to be produced, but that power is going to be wasted. So this is nothing but this amount of power, nothing but the friction power. So this method we can also call as a extrapolated method. That means we are just extending this graph in the negative direction, and we will get the amount of friction power, the point at which this graph is going to intersect this x-axis. So this is nothing but the friction power. So by using this graphical method, we are able to find out the amount of friction power which is going to be produced inside the engine. Now we'll see the second method of measurement of friction power, that is motoring test. In this motoring test, we have to start the engine and we have to keep the engine running for some time at a constant speed. So what will happen? Because of keeping the engine running for some constant speed, your engine will come at a steady condition. Means the temperature of the oil, water, engine components will reach to the stable condition and your engine will be steady. As well as we have kept the engine speed constant. Let us consider that engine speed as 1000 rpm. Now at the same time, whatever the amount of power which is going to be generated, that we are going to transfer to the swinging field type electric dynamometer. This dynamometer will absorb the amount of power generated inside the engine, as well as it will measure the amount of brake power. Let us consider this brake power as a 20 kilowatt, means our engine is running at 1000 rpm and producing 20 kilowatt. This is for example. Now next step, what we have to do in the next step? In the next step, we have to cut off the power supply inside the engine. Means it is a SI engine. If it is a SI engine, we have to make the spark plug inactive. If it is a CI engine, we have to make the injector inactive, so that what will happen? No amount of power is going to be generated inside the engine. If the same condition will be there, after some time our engine will stop. But we don't have to stop the engine. We have to keep the engine running at a constant speed. But here amount of power that we have to supply, that we are supplying from the dynamometer. We are making this dynamometer to work as a motor. That means reverse energy is going to be transferred. This dynamometer will work as a motor, and that motor will keep the engine running. Though the power is not producing inside the engine, our engine will running at the same speed, that is 1000 rpm. That power supplied from the motor. That's why it is called as a motoring test. Now, so whatever the amount of power which is going to be supplied from the motor, we can measure it easily. Why? Because that is nothing but our input power. Now what will be the amount of power? It will be equal to 20 kilowatt, more than 20 kilowatt, or less than 20 kilowatt. Definitely the amount of power required to the motor to keep the engine running at 1000 rpm, it is more than the 20 kilowatt. Let us consider that power supplied to the motor is 25 kilowatt. Now this power we are using for measuring the friction power, that is the difference between the 25 kilowatt and 20 kilowatt. That 5 kilowatt is nothing but your friction power, because our engine is running, that brake power was 20 kilowatt. Now engine is running at the same speed, but input energy is nothing but the 25 kilowatt. So that 5 kilowatt amount of energy is nothing but the amount of energy which is going to be wasted when our engine will running at a constant speed. That is nothing but by using this method we are able to find out the friction power. Now we'll see the third method of measurement of friction power, that is Morse test. In this Morse test, what we have to do, that we'll discuss. This Morse test is mainly going to be used for multiple cylinder engines. That means if the number of cylinders are more than 2, that Morse test we can use. Now what actually happening in the Morse test, that we'll directly see by the calculation part. Now let us consider that 4 cylinders are available with us. That 4 cylinder engine is there. And now we'll consider the total amount of brake power which is going to be produced at our output shaft, that is B, is nothing but the brake power of the engine when all cylinders are operating, all cylinders are working. Now in this Morse test, what we have to do, we have to make the each cylinder inactive for some time one by one. That means first we have to make the cylinder 1 inactive, we have to measure the brake power. Second, we have to make the second cylinder inactive, we have to measure the brake power. Like this way, we have to make the all cylinders inactive and we have to measure the brake power. Let us consider B1 is nothing but the brake power of the engine with cylinder number 1 is inoperative. Inoperative means what? No amount of power is going to be generated inside that cylinder. Means indicated power will be 0 when cylinder 1 is not acting. Similarly for the all cylinders. Then B2 is nothing but the brake power of the engine when cylinder 2 is inoperative. B3 is brake power when cylinder 3 is inoperative, and B4 is brake power when cylinder 4 is inoperative. In the same way, we will consider the total amount of indicated power which is going to be generated inside the 4 cylinder as a I1, I2, I3, I4 respectively. Similarly, we will consider the friction power inside all 4 cylinders as F1, F2, F3 and F4 respectively. Now we know that if we have to measure the brake power, we can use the dynamometer. By using that dynamometer, we can measure the brake power. Let us consider that if we have to measure the total brake power, how we can measure the brake power? For that, we have to consider the total indicated power minus total friction power, because brake power is nothing but the indicated power minus friction power. So that this total brake power B equals to I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus I4 minus F1 plus F2 plus F3 plus F4. In this way, we can able to measure the total brake power. But now, if we have make the cylinder 1 inoperative, so no amount of energy is going to be generated inside this cylinder. That indicated power of that cylinder is 0. Now, if we have to consider that B1, if we have to find out the brake power B1, how we can find out? Above formula we have to use that B1 equals to I2 plus I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus I4. But in this case I1 is 0 because cylinder 1 is inoperative. Means formula is B1 equals to I2 plus I3 plus I4 minus F1 plus F2 plus F3 plus F4. Here F1 will not be 0 because your engine is going to be run but power is not going to be produced. Means what? Friction is going to be occur inside the cylinder number 1. That's why indicated power will be 0 but friction power is not 0. It will be same as it is. Now in the same manner, if we have to find out the all this brake power, now we'll consider we have the equation. Now we'll subtract the B1 from the total brake power. That B minus B1 is equals to, we'll get the I1 because all other terms will get cancelled and only I1 will be remain. That means B minus B1 is equals to indicated power inside cylinder number 1. In the same manner, if we have applied the same method, we'll get the I2, I3 and I4. Means I1 equals to B minus B1, I2 equals to B minus B2, I3 equals to B minus B3 and I4 equals to B minus B4. In this way, we can get the all indicated powers. If we add all these indicated powers, we will get the total indicated power of the engine. Now we are able to find out the total brake power by using the dynamometer, and now we get the total indicated power I1 plus I2 plus I3 plus I4. Now means what? We have the brake power, we have the indicated power, and if we have both these powers, we are easily able to find out the friction power, because this friction power is nothing but the indicated power minus brake power. So in this way we will get the friction power, as well as if we have the brake power and indicated power, we are easily able to find out the mechanical efficiency also. Okay. Now next and last theory point of this chapter is nothing but the heat balance sheet. We have to discuss about this. What is meant by this heat balance sheet? We know that total amount of power which is going to be produced will not be same at our output shaft. There are some of the power losses between the cylinder and the output shaft that we have to discuss here. That means the complete record of the heat supplied and heat rejected during certain time by an IC engine is we have to consider, and we have to enter that in one tabular form. That tabular form is nothing but the heat balance sheet. That this we can say that this table is there. In this table we have to show all the power which is going to be generated inside the engine and how this power is going to be distributed up to our last point that we have to see. That means whatever the first heat input which is going to be generated inside the engine, that we have to show at this point, that we have to measure in terms of kilocalorie or kilojoule. That 100% whatever the amount of power which is generated, that we have to show. Now whatever the power, how it is going to be distributed, that we have to discuss now. We know that majority amount of the power is going to be used for our brake power, that is our final output power. That means first, that is whatever the amount of energy or heat it is going to be used for the brake power, as well as we know that some amount of energy is going to be transferred to the cooling water which we have used. Some amount of energy will be as it is inside the exhaust gases, means exhaust gases will carry some amount of energy. That amount of energy is going to be wasted, as well as some amount of energy we don't know how it is going to be occur to the surrounding. Some losses will happen to the surrounding also by the radiation. Now here, whatever the amount of energy produced, that how it is going to be distributed, that we have to show in this right side column, that heat expenditure. First main amount of power is going to be transferred to the brake power, heat in the brake power. Second one, heat carried out by the jacket cooling water. Some amount of energy will be transferred to the cooling water, and some amount of energy is going to be transferred to the exhaust gases. And whatever the unaccountable energy which is going to be wasted, like we have discussed, that radiation, like this power is going to be wasted, that we have to show it here. And we have to find out these powers or heat, how it is going to be transferred, and its percentage also. Majority percentage will be for the brake power. How to find out this brake power? By using the dynamometer. How to find out second parameter, that heat carried by the jacket cooling water? We know that if we have to find out the heat, we have to use one equation, that is mCp delta T. That equation we have to apply it here. We have to find out the mass of the water, we have to find out the Cp of the water, also we have to find out the temperature difference of the water which is going to be supplied for the cooling purpose. If we get all these three values, we will get the heat carried away by the jacket cooling water. As well as third one, heat carried by the exhaust gases. Here again we have to use the same formula, mCp delta T. Here we have to consider the mass of the gases which will carry the energy, Cp of that gas, as well as temperature difference of the gas. And by using this formula, we are able to find out the heat carried away by the exhaust gases. And at the last, heat unaccountable. How we are able to find out? We have to consider total amount of heat, that is QS, heat supplied, minus all these three expenditures. First expenditure A, brake power. Second expenditure, that is cooling water loss. And third is nothing but the exhaust gas losses. So in this way, this is nothing but the heat balance sheet, on which we are going to analyze how much amount of power is produced and how that power is going to be utilized, or how that power is going to be transferred up to the last point. So this is about the heat balance sheet. Now today we'll stop up to here, and in the next lecture we will discuss about the numericals on this chapter number 7. Thank you.